So I just finished watching episode 8 merely a minute ago. Not even a minute ago, like just 20 seconds. I just finished watching it. And all I can say is wow. Yeah. Wow. I I could have never predicted anything that happened in this episode. I wow. Um I don't even know how to do a freestyle of this. I'm going to be straightforward with y'all. This episode alone rivals the entirety of Estrella record. The episode called Belle Cranel, the Fool, to me is the single greatest episode of Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. Wow. And I mean wow. Wow. I need something to drink, man. Oh, wow. I'm gonna... Hold on. I need to drink something. So let's talk about something. So my favorite episode of season 1, even though I barely remember season 1, my favorite episode of season 1, in my opinion, it isn't the finale. It isn't, like the training episode between Belle and A.A. I think my favorite episode of season 1, to what I can remember, is when Belle saved Lily. When I love the episode in which Lily betrayed Belle and then Belle saved her. I think that was my favorite episode of season 1. My favorite episode of season 2, and I've made this obvious. Actually, I haven't made it obvious, have I? Because I said it was War Game. I said that War Game, I think it was like episode 4, War Game, was the greatest episode in the entire series at the time. But that might rival with the whole village arc finale with I already forgot the old guy's name, but the village leader that rivals. So when it comes to season 2, War Game episode 4 and episode 12 rival each other, because one is very much full of emotion, just like Belle saving Lily, and the other, War Game, has a lot of action and a lot of twists. So they're pretty much tied. As for events, my favorite events, are a Stray record, for the story, for the background, for the emotion, for the lore, for the comedy. My favorite crossover event is probably A.a.'s Catastrophe, with how grand and action and this and that it is. It's just the best one. I mean, why do you think I replayed it like twice? My favorite heroic trials has to be the Wallenstein Valentine. My favorite episode in Sword Oratoria is episode 2, in which Aes and Lafia become better friends, by going shopping and whatnot. Episode 3 of the Ryu episode, Down with Grand Casino. That's my favorite. Because, Ryu and Belle's friendship at the end kind of just is so wholesome. Also, they kind of just, Ryu sort of just, destroyed Ted. So that was cool. My favorite episode in Lafia episodes is when Lafia was training with, did she train with him? Or train with her? When Lafia was training with Fivlis. My favorite summer event is Midsummer Lover's Tale. My favorite fall event, or Halloween event, is probably Spooktacular Labyrinth. My favorite winter event will always be Winter Magic Miracle. Well, it rivals between Winter Magic Miracle and Holy and Winter Reverie. My favorite New Year event is definitely The Werewolf Comes. And my favorite spring event, even though I'm pretty sure it didn't release in the spring, is Elven Rondo. My favorite characters out of the whole series are Belle, Fells, Ryu, Belle, Fells, Ryu, Hermes, Tiona, Ween, Finn, and and Bomb. And I guess Lily, really just everyone. My favorite villains. I mean, there's only one favorite villain of mine. I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's freaking Arabius. The most relatable character to a lot of people, I feel like, would be Aina. My most favorite wacky event and the entire, series game was, is it wrong to go into the dungeon anyway, or whatever? The funny gacha one. And then my funny side quip event was Final Aerial AS Wars. And believe it or not, folks. Oh, is the game not even? Oh, I can't even play the game. Oh, the video's still recording. Hold on. So where am I going with all of this? Where I'm going with all of this is I have a lot of favorites in this series. I have a lot of favorite things, or characters, or events, or episodes. And although this is gonna sound a bit ambitious, a bit over the top of me, and I'll probably regret saying this later, and I'm probably already regretting to say it now, even though I haven't already said it. But Episode 8 of Season 3 is quite possibly the greatest 24 minutes of Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon that I have watched in the past 937 days. And I already regret it. I already regret saying that. But in a way, in many ways, it's true. This episode brought me to more shocks and more tears and more emotions than I thought it would. To be completely honest with you, I thought this episode would feature Belle getting pelted, getting hated. I thought this episode was going to be the downfall of the Hestia Familia. I thought everything and anything was about to go wrong this episode. But in reality, folks, it kind of went everywhere. So, let's get a recap. Let's get a recap, why don't we? Because now that I've talked about all the favorites and whatnot, let's keep on having this review to be, like, super long. Because if any review needs to be long for this season, it's going to be this one. This review is going to... I'm gonna go through frame by frame on this episode, folks. You better be ready, because this is gonna be the longest part of the 3. This review is not gonna be anything of short. It's gonna all be freestyle, but hell if I care, because I'm gonna look through that episode every 52 seconds to reference something, because this episode needs recognition. This episode needs the best freestyle, the best overlook out of every single episode, period. So before I start the review, let's review. Episode 1 of Season 3. We meet Ween as Belle and his palios are fighting through the 19th floor, the frickin' tree labyrinth thing. Forest labyrinth, I think they called it. He finds Ween. He saves Ween. And throughout the episode, him, Ween, and Haruhime, they're sort of like the B plot of the episode, but they're having fun, they're chilling, they're relaxing. Hestia Familia, they're doing their things. They're doing this and that. They're trying to discover things. They're trying to learn things. We hear that Hermes Somalia knows some stuff at the end of the first episode. We learned that Ween has this dream and she'll kill everybody. And just like that, I'm sure a bunch of other stuff happened in the episode. Like, we heard from Fells and Uranus. And, we saw Fells, staring upon good old Haruhime, Belle, and Ween. That's it. Episode 2. Stuff does not go according to plan. And what happens is, Belle and the gang have to leave Ween with Hestia. And I think Haruhime... I think they... Now that I think about it, I think they leave Hestia... I think they leave Ween with Hestia, Haruhime, and Makoto. While Belle, Welf, and Lily, the original trio, the OG trio, go down into the dungeon, accompanied by the magnificent Ryu and the beautiful Aisha. To explore, to see what they can find around where Ween was. At least I think that's what they were doing. And along their travels, specifically Belle and Welf's travels, they encounter a hooded creature who, at first I assumed was Fells, but it wasn't Fells. And this hooded creature basically says, "Hey, are you the two that, that took my kind?" Like, we didn't really understand, but we had the theory that she would be that blue harpy in the intro. And we were right about that. We didn't learn about if we were right about that until episode 3. Before we get into the episode 3, we need to reference the end. We need to go to the end of episode 2. In episode 2, we ended off with Ween hearing about Hestia, Ween hearing over Hestia and other of the folk arenas in the Hestia Familia, talking about how they should just leave Ween, or that they should just return Ween to the dungeon, or this or that. And Ween got really sad about that, and she ran away from the house, and ran into the streets of Rario, went to try to save a girl, and accidentally sprung her one wing up, alarming the crowd, and put them into a frenzy. Thankfully, nothing happened to Ween, because Lily, with her epic powers, her epic disguise powers, saved Ween, as well as Belle, Welf, Haruhime, Hestia, all the gang. And they all headed to the good old church home, cathedral home. And they were all bunked up there, and Haruhime's like, or not Haruhime, but Ween is like, "Is it bad for us to be together?" as she said to Belle. Belle doesn't respond. The next episode starts off with, episode 3. Stuff starts really kicking up. And basically Aina's like, "What is happening? Why are all these people shouting this and that at me?" Everyone's just freaked out about, about, the whole monster attack. No, not monster attack, but, Ween appearing in the public. Made her debut. Everyone's, freaked out about that, and asking why, what's going on. And Aina can't answer that. And I really feel bad for her, but anyway, the point is, she gets called up to Lumen. Lumen's like, please deliver to this Bell. It's a sacred mission from Lumen to Bell. And Anna gives the mission to Bell. Bell doesn't ask for any help of Anna, and takes the mission. The mission is in a letter, whom he gives to Hestia. Hestia reads it, and it says, "Go down to the specific floor and bring the girl, and bring the monster girl." And so Hestia Familia decides, we're going to go down there. Along with the note, Hestia decodes some god-type runes, and it says to basically meet this person at this place. So our good old Hestia Familia is on their way to whatever floor. I think they were going to the 20th floor. Hestia goes on her little journey of her own, only to find Fells, whom is a character that we have not seen what's under his hood, or what he looks like, what's his past. Very mysterious character. And right when he meets her, he shows who he is to her. But we, the audience, don't see that. We'll see that next episode. We see him. She's there. And, we see the continuation of, Hestia Familia going down, they find, a little area to break into, where they will eventually find, they'll eventually find something. But before we do that, we gotta go back to Hestia for a second. So, we then see Fells following Hestia through all these, through these sacred passages, or these underground tunnels, and it's whoa, this is cool, and it looks all Legend of Zelda-y. And surprise, surprise, all these tunnels lead to the good old Uranos. So, Hestia and Uranos are now talking about stuff. For the next 2 episodes, they actually talk about, monetary value of monsters. Well, that's not the main point, but why they're talking monsters, what is the dungeon, what's happening with the dungeon, that he believes that Hestia Familia is going to be the one to unite monsters and humans. And that's where we learn about the Xenos. Intelligent monsters. Monsters that possess intelligence. That is who Bell and Co. End up fighting with, but ultimately, stop fighting with when they get to the 20th floor. This is, of course, surprising, not just to them, but to Hestia, whom Uranos says, like I said, Hestia, it is your job. He believes that it is her and her familia's job to close the gap and to bring together both humans and monsters to live in harmony. We delve into episode 4. Episode 4, it's a monster party. It's a Xenos party. Everyone's having their drinks. Everyone's having their fun. Everyone's getting a little tipsy here and there. It's fun. We learn about Gross. We learned about Ray, who is the blue harpy. We learn about Lid. And on top of that, we see Fells. We learn the backstory of Fells, and we see that he is just a skull. He is a skeleton. He is a mage who created the power of eternal life. He found a way for him to be eternal. People call him Fells the Fool for doing that. We learn that Fells and Uranos, we learn that Fells has been beside Uranos as the ages shift in the world of Arario. We learn that Fells and Uranos have been working with Ganesha Familia for the past 15 years to help the Xenos. They've been friends, they've been homies for 15 years. Bringing supplies to them, weapons. providing them safe places to be in. We learn that the Xenos are nomads. We learn that the Xenos, some Xenos know how to speak fluent languages, like Japanese. And some don't. Some don't know how to do that. And they believe that for the ones that do know, must have had past lives before in which they did. Now this is very interesting because this relates to a sort of thing that I talked about in an episode prior to me recording the review for that episode, which was basically that I feel like I had a past life and the Xenos had a past life and they feel like it was a thing and this and that. Very interesting thing. Very interesting episode. We also see a lot of conversation between Uranus and Hestia, but I'm not really going to get into that. It's more of just about monetary value, and we learn what the meaning of monstrophilia is. It's basically to calm down the it's basically to calm down the people's view on monsters. We learn a lot of things. Afterward. Well, do we? No. We don't. Yeah, we don't learn a lot of things afterward. But what we do learn is this. We learn that after the party, they're going to be moving villages. The Xenos. And along with the Xenos, Ween, a Xenos herself, has to go with them. Which means Belle and Ween are now separated, very sad. They were so wholesome. And she cries out. He cries out. They'll see each other again. Just next time isn't going to be, for a long time. So, the episode ends off with Ween, the episode starts to end off with Belle and Co. leaving the dungeon and Hestia leaving Uranus. Both groups meet up at Times Square, and they're just completely mind blown by everything that they've experienced, and their little arc for that episode ends. Their little reunion, if you will, is cut short when we're seeing Ween and her group that's going to lead them to their new village. We see them on their way to the new village, and as they're on their way, Lily's complaining, or not Lily, but Ween is complaining, oh yeah, I wish I could have Makoto's cooking, and all this and that. Ranye, the leader of the group, being a little bit of a bitch, she's like, forget about them, they don't matter, and blah, blah, blah. And then after that, we're talking for not even a minute, Ween hears a scream of a siren, of a harpy, I thought they were called. And she believes that a Xenos is in trouble. One of their kind is in trouble. This scream triggers their team to go and save the harpy, to go and save the siren, only to find the siren chained up in a cavern, and only to see that it was only a trap laid out by Dees and the hunters. Now, I didn't mention Dees in the recap of episode 1, 2, and 3, but I am now, because this is when he's most prominent. So we don't meet him, but we see Dees per Dees and his hunters, a few folks that are a part of this familia called the Kellos familia, who we heard a few episodes back was assumably a part of Ivalis, the evil faction that tried to destroy Aurario back in Astrea record times, in the Dark Ages, if you will. And so the hunters, along with Dees per Dees, they strike down at the Xenos, who have been led here by them. And they basically start taking them down. And that continues into episode 5, in which Ranye, in which I mean, that's really all I can remember. In which Ranye and multiple other Xenos are killed mercifully. And it's tragic, and Ween is the only one left. And the sad thing is that Ween is left. But that doesn't mean... Ween is left, but she isn't killed. She instead is captured by Dees, and we don't get to see what happens for a while. Right after this, some of the Xenos, like Gross, I should say, Gross, comes across the remnants of the battle, is pissed off, goes to Lid, and says he wants to start a rebellion, and wants to go after those adventurers. So, unfortunately, on a whim, the Xenos start storming Latveria. Lid tells Arls and a Hellhound to go and get this beast guy. And we don't see the beast guy for a while. Remember him, because he's pretty important. So, while this whole rebellion is starting, while this whole revolution, if you will, is starting, we see Bell go to the dungeon. No, well, actually, we don't see that yet. We see Bell with his familia, having breakfast, but he's really uncomfortable because, all the stuff that's happened. He really needs to think about stuff. So he goes to the dungeon to see if he can beat a monster, since, he kind of feels uneasy about killing monsters now that he knows about Xenos. And even though he's a bit uneasy about it, I believe he does kill a monster. But that took a lot of energy out of him. So he starts leaving the dungeon. And upon leaving the dungeon, we see him talking to a.k.a. But before he really talks to a.k.a., you see that Fells is watching him. And we see that Fells is watching him, and I think Fells is trying to find where a.k.a. was when they exited the dungeon, because apparently they've been keeping their eye on a.k.a. So that's very interesting, and they didn't see them come out of the dungeon at any point. So very interesting. Then we go back to Bell and a.k.a. They have a little conversation outside of Bell about is it wrong to try to kill monsters, or is it wrong to kill monsters for monetary value, and whatnot. And a.k.a. says she'll kill monsters no matter what. Well, not no matter what, but if the monster hurts somebody, then she'll kill it. And here is where Bell and a.k.a.'s friendship shows signs of declining. And then but before they can continue talking, because Bell was going to say something, but before he can say anything, a huge announcement is made. a.k.a. says, monsters are attacking Latveria. We need all families on board. All familias on board. Let's get it. Then after she makes that announcement, she says, no familias are allowed in the dungeon. And what happens is that through a lot of quick scenes and whatnot, Uranus and Fells and Lumen issue a suppression team. A suppression team that includes the entirety of Ganesha Familia, and also Ryu, Aisha, Bell, and a Svi. Svi obviously being hired by Hermes, Bell being hired by Uranus, Ryu being contacted by Aisha, who's worried for Bell, and that's pretty much it. And we also learn in this episode that Aisha is a part of Hermes Familia. So I guess Aisha should have also been whatever. So that's what's up there. So they all prepare. Both Belle, Ryu, Aisha, SV, and then all of Ganesha Familia, they all prepare at the end of the episode to suppress all of the Xenos on Floor 18 in Latveria. They all plan to do that. And with some epic words and an epic speech, the episode ends off. Episode 6. We start off episode 6 with quite the interesting beginning. So we start off with episode 6, where the Xenos, I believe Gross specifically, is interrogating one of the acid victims of Ranye, and to ask them where are the Xenos, where are our kin, and the stupid acid victim says over there, like to the east, and says as they're as the Xenos fled, go to the east, he says as his dying last words, they'll never find it, haha. Now, what they'll never find is what we'll learn in a bit. So, continuing, what happens in that episode, we have them going to find that we have Ganesha Familia on the ground. We have Ganesha Familia on floor 18. There's some little quips here about Maoka and Madoka and frickin' whatever, and basically, it all ends up with Ganesha Familia planning on how to split up and whatnot. So they decide one team is going to be led by one person, which I already forgot. Oh yeah, one team is going to be led by Madoka, who's going to head to who's gonna follow the Xenos, who are running, and then the other team is going to try to suppress the Xenos. So that's what they're doing. But I think that plan sort of just falls apart, because they run into the Xenos and then they just start a huge battle. And in this huge battle, of course, is Ryu and Svi and Aisha, and of course Belle. And in this battle, Belle, of course, encounters Lid. Now, while all this is going on, at some point, we see Hestia, Hestia Familia behind some bushes outside of Belle, and they're all trying to come up with ideas of why did this happen, where are the hunters, and all this kind of stuff. And they start, out of nowhere, Hestia brings up, monetary value for monsters. And that sparks something in Lily's mind that makes her go back to the creepy guy in Season 2 that's related with Soma Familia. And so we learn that the creepy guy actually knew about the Xenos and knew that there was a familia or a group of people that sold monsters for monetary value. Or used monsters or captured monsters for monetary value. And so that little whole arc ends there, but not really, because we learn that when Hestia Familia wants to know where the hunter's hideout could be, Mr. Creepy Guy says, if you look in Data Street, you might find them. Now, let me link up for a second. So, before I go back to them, well, we're not really going to be going back to them for a while. Let's continue what happens with Belle. So, in the battle, in the skirmishes between Ganesha Familia and the Xenos, we see Belle fighting Lid, and them fighting in a secluded area where they can talk while they're fighting. Belle tries to help Lid, but Lid doesn't want Belle's help, and instead tries to attack Belle. Ryu saves Belle, and Lid runs away. Ryu and Belle have a conversation, like Ryu's worried for him and everything, and and she's worried that if he's caught up in this, bad stuff will happen to him because it's all about like Ivalice and shit. And Ryu and Ivalice. I mean, y'all know what happened there. But Ryu says, Bell, you got to come back to the battlefield. We got to keep you safe and this and that. And then Bell's like, no, I have to go do this. And Ryu's still worried, but understanding because he'll be an adventurer through and through. She gives him a bag of different like potions and this and that, including this glass eye, which we'll get to in a minute. After that, Bell thanks Ryu, and Bell runs off after Lid. And when Bell is running after Lid, he comes across Fells, and Fells is now running with Bell after Lid. They run all the way to where Lid was running and come across a wall, just a straight wall on the 18th floor. And they go to this wall, and they're like, what do we do now? And right after they say that, the glass eye starts glowing. And Fells is like, what's that? And Bell pulls it out, gives it to Fells, and Fells realizes that it's reacting to something. So Fells then puts his hand on the rock that the glass eye is reacting to, and the wall dissipates. The wall dissipates and opens up a secret passageway, where there's a large gate made out of the strongest metal known to man in Memoria Freese, in the world of Auraria. Now, they enter this place. I'm surprised. Everyone's really surprised. And they use the glass eye they come across the gate. Fells says it's the strongest metal or whatever. And then he uses the glass eye to then open the gate. They open the first gate. They look to their left, and they see the word Daedalus. Almost reminiscent of Daedalus Street, and there's a hole under there. Fells then realizes as they're walking through the different doors using the eye that they might have found the second entrance to the dungeon. The second entrance that they've been trying to find for years and years and years and years and years. And now they finally found it. And he's happy about that. He's so happy about that. Now that we know this, we continue on. And we hop over to Lid and the Xenos that have reached, the a.k.a. Somalia hideout. And they're trying to help their friendos, but are stopped by Dis per Dis and his hunter boys. Dis per Dis then, start to attack the Xenos. And thankfully, who arrives on time is Bell and Fells. And so Bell and Fells then start helping all these Focarinos. We got Fells. We got Bell starting to fight Dis. We have the hunters fighting the Xenos, and freaking what's his name? Freaking God, what's his name? Freaking Dis. Dis then, spreads this spell upon all the Xenos that basically makes them go out of control and fight each other instead of the hunters. And though not all of the Xenos are controlled by this, because Fells makes a barrier for all the Xenos to stand behind, but not all of them stand behind it, they're basically all just rampaging. And while all this is going on, Hermes and a.k.a. are on top of this tower in Daedalus Street, and they're gonna start having a little conversation. But the thing is that, and here's what I forgot to mention. Before the real battle started, we learned something incredible. We learned something insane. We learned that Dis is the descendant of Daedalus. Daedalus, we learn, is the craftsman who crafted the cornerstones of Arario, both Babel and Daedalus Street. And along with this, Daedalus also decided to build a secret entrance into the dungeon. And that entrance, of course made by him, led to what is now the a.k.a.'s hideout, what he titled it, what he knighted it as Knossos, the man-made labyrinth. And this labyrinth has been constructed and has been passed down, like the prints have been passed down generation after generation for over 1,000 years, which for the first time gives us a look at how long Arario has been alive. 1,000 years plus. That's a lot of years. That's a long time. Now. No. What happens next? Well, like I said, the battle starts happening. It's a crazy battle. So, like I said, we learned that Dis, descendant of Daedalus, and he's gone insane. The episode ends off with them fighting, and it also ends off with the mans, with the whatchamacallit, with Arls and the Hellhound Xenos leading this big Minotaur, which I thought at the time was the same Minotaur that Bell had fought in his quote-unquote adventure, but it's like, no, that's impossible. That's not. And so they go ahead and lead that giant Minotaur, and that's where episode 7 begins. Now, episode 7, assuming we just covered episode 6, and episode 7 is a bit crazier. Continuing this whole thing, a few things happen. Belle is getting beat the hell up by Dis. Dis is like saying a bunch of jibber jabber, saying how like, this blood binding is making him insane and he can't stop it. He says that he's sick of Knossos and he doesn't want to make it, and he'd rather let it disappear, and instead he'd rather just do anything else besides that. And we also learned that Dis is actually just insane, because he takes pleasure from torturing the Xenos. When he found the Xenos, he took pleasure in torturing the Xenos. And we also learned that Dis, as a.k.a. calls it, has the dream of a beast, which is to just kill and torture, I'm assuming, or to just grow stronger in torturing or killing. I'm assuming that's why Akelos decided to be the god of a Daedalus descendant. Besides that, though, the whole battle's going on. Bel's fighting Dis per Dis. The hunters are fighting the Xenos. When suddenly Bel is beat up so much to the point where it's like to the point where he pisses off Dis per Dis, saying you're really torturing Xenos for something that stupid. And so Dis per Dis is ticked off. He shows Bel to where Ween is. And Ween is chained up in a redly lit room. And Bel sees her and she sees Bel. And they're both staring at each other, and they're both worried, and Dis gets behind Ween and says, "Do you want to know, or what do you think will happen if I pull out her magic stone? If I pull out her crystal?" And Ween says, "I'll die." And then Dis per Dis, well, let's see what happens. And Dis per Dis, despite Bel's efforts, pulls out Ween's magic stone or magic crystal, but it doesn't kill her. It doesn't kill her, folks. It makes her stronger. It releases her true self, her demonic dragon self. It releases her status as the dragon's daughter. And so she starts rampaging. She starts by rampaging by kicking Bel back into Knossos, the man-made labyrinth, and she screams. Fels realizes that that's Ween, and then we cut to break. So after this, Ween's going crazy, Dis is happy, and Bel is just like, I need to keep Ween under control. So Bel, despite, Ween hitting him and slapping him away, Bel eventually teams Ween, or relaxes Ween, but doesn't do so successfully. Because all she does is just cry and cry and cry. Because she's confused and she's scared. But he says some words to Ween that are so powerful. And he says some words to Dis, because he's really pissed off, because Dis thought that Bel was going to kill her, but he didn't. And Dis is so pissed off, and Bel says some words that are really, really great, that it's enough to break Lid out. It's enough to break Lid's curse, or the curse on Lid. And Lid and Bel begin fighting Dis per Dis. And they're fighting him, and it's really cool, and they just beat him up real good. And from this point on, stuff just gets really bad. So they basically destroy Dis per Dis, but not really, because they try to engage when he's weak, but he doesn't let them, because he has Ween's magic stone, which if he crushed, they just lose everything. But instead of crushing it, he throws it. Bel gets it. Almost dies. Lid saves him. And then when they come back to their senses, Dis per Dis is standing right next to Ween. Casts this illusion spell where Ween can see 1,000,000 bells, and uses this to trick her into going through the second entrance, or the second exit of the dungeon. So from this point on, Bel goes ahead, and Bel and Fels go ahead to save. Bel and Fels go ahead to save Ween. Of course, Fel's going to be able to heal Bel's wounds, because he has a lot of wounds, because, he was beat up real bad by Dis. And so they go. Bel runs off. Lid and the other Xenos decide we're going to go help him. one of the members, that in the whole battle, very weakly walks away. This guy like has a full blown cut into his head. It's crazy. In summary, the episode ends off with Hestia Familia having ended up in Daedalus Strait. And they hear a crash boom, realize that it's VIII. It's a crazy monster type VIII. And a lot of citizens are there. Loki Familia is there. They actually pin her down. Belle is there. And in the most selfish and the most terrifyingly intense scene of the season, of the show even, Belle walks in front of VIII, in front of the eyes of Loki Familia, citizens, Hestia Familia, Hermes and Achelos. He walks in front of VIII, turns his back to VIII, and spreads his arms out, indicating that he wants to protect her. As Hermes, with his tipped hat, in silence says, "Belle, you are truly a fool." Now that I've recapped you, now that we're an hour into the episode, let's review. Let's talk about what happens next. We then come to episode 8. Belle Cranel, the Fool. The episode starts off with Dix per Dix. Yes, Dix per Dix, the man with the dream of a beast. And we see him just like the guy with, just like one of his hunters, the guy with the frickin' axe in his head. Cut in his head. We see Dix per Dix really beat up and struggling to walk through a hallway. Probably the same hallway that his hunter boy was trying to go through. And we see him going through the hallway, and he's struggling. He's like, "Damn Belle, damn these guys, damn the Xenos, damn everyone. I'm gonna kill them, I'm gonna kill them all." But what happens instead is quite gruesome. So I didn't mention it last episode, but in episode 7, even though I mentioned it, I didn't mention it in the review. I mean, I mentioned it in the review, but I didn't mention it in the recap. I'm gonna turn off my Wi-Fi because I fucking... Okay. I know that the game isn't gonna work, but who cares? So, what happens next... Or no. What I forgot to mention about in the recap of last episode, of episode 7, is that Hermes Familia tamed all the Xenos on the 18th floor, but then were just completely injured in like a single swoop by this giant black minotaur. And they're just absolutely slaughtered. I mean, they're not dead, but like they're terribly injured. Barely any of them were living. And so we see this black minotaur following Dix per Dix in the hallway. And Dix is like, "Damn it, who is it this time?" And turns his back around and sees the snout, the nose of the Black Minotaur. The Black Minotaur, which we'll learn his name later, Atreus. And if that's not how you say it, I just don't fucking care. He sees the Black Minotaur Atreus. And he's like, "You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. I fucking hate everything." And with a mighty raise of his axe, murders Dis Perdis. The intro starts, and I'm left in shock at what just happened. The villain of the season, within a mere second, is murdered, is killed off, is practically just non-existent, gone from history, dead. The last descendant of Daedalus, the last living descendant of Daedalus, of Daedalus, has died. Now this episode, unlike a lot of episodes in Memoria Freese, is quite possibly, quite literally, one of the darkest episodes of Memoria Freese. Now, if y'all thought that, Hestia and Belle being bombarded by a bunch of the ones in Apollo Familia and Soma Familia, like if you thought, them getting like rampaged by them or ambushed by them just constantly, and if you think that was crazy, if you think that was dark, you'd be right. If you think, Haruhime, and the whole Killing Stone arc was dark, you're right about that. If you think the whole Aragonot, all that stuff, we're not talking about that. We're talking about season, talking about, canon stuff. I mean, Aragonot's canon, but you get my point. Memoria Freese is known for its tragedy, at some points. And this episode is the definition of the darkest tragedy. We're going to get to that in a moment. So, you're probably all wondering, what happens next? Well. Have I got an answer for you folks? And have I got an answer for you that is just going to take forever to answer? Hold on. Let me get on the couch. Folks, you're going to want to sit back. Because, like I said, I'm going frame by frame for this episode. Hold on. Okay. Let me lower the music. So, the episode continues after the epic intro, with Bell still raising his hands, or raising his arms, his back facing Ween, indicating, that he's trying to protect Ween. And he wants to protect Ween. Now, Ween is screaming. Everyone's looking. Everyone's intense. And he's still protecting her. And Loki Familia, they don't know what's happening. And Bet's like, let's get this done. And then before anyone can say anything else, Bell uses Firebolt. It's like, wait, you're using Firebolt? What? And it's kind of weird because it doesn't use Firebolt like straight at, like I thought, like if he's gonna use Firebolt, like I don't know, like maybe aim it at Loki Familia, but then again, that's not really a good idea. He just aims it at like a random building. And so Bet's confused, as he should rightfully be. Lots of citizens are watching from the windows. And then Hermes says, it will end. One wrong move here, and Bell Cranel will become enemy of humanity. And we see him, and we see good old Hermes standing on top of the tower. Very interested to see what happens. And I'm also interested to see what happens, because, like, he's right, one false move, and it's the end of Bell. It's the end of Bell Cranel. But Bell does something that I didn't even think of doing. See, I think when I thought Bell was putting up his arms, trying to protect Ween, I thought that's what he was signaling. I thought he was signaling, I'm trying to protect Ween, or I'm trying to protect this monster. But he saves that. He saves himself by instead of saying I'm trying to protect this monster, he says, this is my catch. And I'm like, of course, that's genius. That's genius. You are an adventurer. You are, if you have a catch, if you have a monster that you're chasing after and you want to beat yourself despite yourself having a lot of trouble with it, it's completely rational to want to say, it's completely rational to say, this is my catch, to people who come across a monster you're trying to defeat or you've been trying to defeat for a long time. So I think that's genius. Now, the way Loki Familia reacts to this, the way Loki Familia reacts to this is that they're just really surprised, as well as Hestia Familia. And I think this is like a great play by Bell, because it basically saves him and gives him time. It doesn't really make him, it makes him look like a fool, but it doesn't make him an enemy. It makes him a fool, but not an enemy. So after this, Ween successfully pulls out the spear out of her shoulder, and she slithers away through Daedalus Street, and Bell chases after her. And Loki Familia is like, what the what? So what's happening? And Ace clarifies that it is a violation, like among adventurers, which I feel like I didn't know this before, and I'm glad that we know now. I feel like it's common sense, between the characters in the show and not really, like, the viewer. But we learned that among adventurers, it is a violation of manners to step in and take another's prey, like I said earlier. And they understand that. They easily understand that. I'm like, wow, they're so easily convinced. Because Tiona's like, oh yeah, it's since Ween's breed is a rare monster, it makes sense. It makes complete sense. Bet's rightfully pissed off, saying that that's only a rule for when they're in the dungeon. And then Finn's like, we're not gonna follow his rules. We have to go after it. And just as they're about to go after it, Gross roars passionately on a rock in the middle of Daedalus Street. And I'm like, they're outside. They were planning to save Belle. So I'm like, dude, that's crazy. This is crazy. This is actually happening. So what happens next is that, like I said, we also see Ray and we see Ray, Fear, and we see more of the Xenos. Loki and Miller are surprised by this, and they say that it seems, they say it seems this is not unrelated. This is not related? So it's not related, so it is related? It's not related. Not related. It's not unrelated. Okay, so it says it seems that this is not unrelated to the uproar over the destruction of Latveria. And after this, once Finn says that, Tiona, and Bet go straight in to the battlefield. But Finn tells Ace to stay here because Finn, he has a little, he has a feeling, yeah. He has a feeling in his little thumb, as per usual. And that there's something bothering him. And Finn, surprisingly, because I thought, he'd go straight to, killing the Xenos. Or the monsters to them, really. Finn instead says, take them alive if you can. And of course, Bet's like, what do you mean? And so Bet goes for Gross, who is flying in the sky, and Gross just freaking. Then there's this. Okay, so to basically wrap what's going on here, Gross and Bet just have a huge battle, and they start Gross doesn't really talk, but they just start fighting, and then after that, Tion's in a battle with Lid, which is crazy, and Lid's like, dude, she's super strong, and it's like, well, yeah, you're kind of facing Loki Familia. Yeah, but Tion and Lid are fighting. Lid loses, but Tion doesn't kill him. Gross also lost. I forgot to mention that. Tiona's freaking fighting a goblin and just absolutely destroys it, but doesn't kill it. And then freaking Arls is trying to punch Tiona. And then Tiona just flicks him, and then the Hellhound Xenos takes Arls. So it's a very interesting situation, because Loki Familia, the strongest Familia, are acting sort of tame with all these Xenos. Fels then says, I am sorry, Oranos, I'm going to have to use it, because, this is bad. If this continues, then, Loki Familia fighting the Xenos, you never know what'll happen. So what he's going to use is what I'll discuss in a minute. Because so by the way, we see Fells in the public on top of one of the towers in Daedalus Street. He's watching over all this. And it's just a very interesting situation because Loki Familia is acting really tame, and not really tame, but at least Tiona is. And anyway, Vels is about to summon something. He's going to use something, rather, and he does some wizard magic ado. And basically, just out of nowhere, these Breath of the Wild type Calamity Ganon like pillars that are a bit smaller just emerge from the ground. And freaking Tiona and Bet are like, what the hell is that? And then they dissipate, and then they form into this giant, this stone giant, which isn't really a stone giant, but it's a giant made entirely, or a golem made entirely about a mantite, which is like, dude, that's epic. But here's what's crazy. So, Fells is super proud of this secret weapon that I have, and it's super cool. And this thing is, it's supposed to be made of the strongest metal in the world. And then out of in a split second, Tiona just slices it in half. And it's like, and Fells is like, what the fuck? And this solidifies my love for Tiona, because she's just so cool, man. And then Fells is like, see, I did it. He's so in shock, and so what the hell? He's so caught off guard kind of thing. That his robe no, not his robe, but his hood comes off of him, and we can see his skull. Which is cool. Tiona and Bet say Tiona, come on, how could you? And then Fells is like, it's no good. Loki Familia are the monsters here. That's funny. But then Fells, despite failing there, notices another crash boom on a nearby building. Oh, I accidentally. Okay, hold on. Notices a crash boom on a nearby building. That's made by Gareth. Freaking Gareth looks so cool, man. I wonder if there's anyone out there who has who's cosplayed as Gareth. Gareth would be a crazy person to cosplay as, crazy good. Anyway, continuing. The tower that Gareth boom landed on is the same tower where Akelos is, and Akelos like, uh-oh, I guess I got caught. And Gareth is like, oh, are you behind all this? And then Akelos says nothing, but, Gareth, grabs Akelos anyway. Just puts him on his back, and it's like, I forgot that, I didn't forget anything, I just think that it's funny that it's like, oh yes, Gareth grabs a god and just puts him on his, just hangs him on his shoulder or something. It's funny. It's just, I don't know, something about that is really quirky though. Gareth then jumps down with Akelos, and we get this really awesome wide shot of Daedalus Street, which I genuinely feel like using for this video's thumbnail, because it looks so good. but I don't know how I'd make it work. I'll have to see at some point. But yeah, we get this like really cool view of Daedalus Street, and it's, oh man, it just looks so great. And then we see, in that great view, we see Fels and Hermes. We see Fels and Hermes, two of my favorite characters, talking with each other. Oh, that's so cool, man. It's such a... Anyway, so we see them talking. And Fels thanks Hermes, and Hermes was like, it was nothing. The way things are now, we really need Fels' power, or his power. And Hermes, I guess just the knower of all, I mean, really the knower of just everything, calls Fels sage. But then Fels corrects him, saying that I am the fool, I am Fels. And then Hermes says, Fels, Bel is alone. And, Hermes wants Fels to help him, for him. But then Fels is like, but the Xenos, I need to help him, like we're homies, we're straight up homegirls, But then Hermes reassures... Or Hermes not reassures, but rest assures that the Xenos will be fine. When Laloon just comes out of the shadows, preparing to, I'm assuming, save the Xenos from any immediate danger. So that's going to be very interesting to see. After that, we're seeing, like, what I'm assuming is Welf wanting to go and fight for the Xenos and fight against Tion and Tiona and Bet. But Lily is trying to stop him because it's like, we don't want, like, we already have Belle screwing up things for us. Like, if we have any one of us, show any like resistance or like show any help towards the Xenos, I mean, we'll just be screwed. And so it's just, but yeah, it's kind of an iffy moment. But Welf is like, all right, I can't do anything about this, and well, he doesn't say anything, but the whole conversation is not really distracted, but the whole conversation is sort of just abruptly ended. The whole conversation is intervened by giant footsteps, by a giant roar, if you will. And everyone's, like, the camera's panning to everyone's faces and everyone's reactions, and it then pans to the hole that I'm assuming the Xenos made to, that Ween made to the surface. And through that hole comes the Black Minotaur, Atreus. Atreus then faces Tion, Tiona, and Bet. With his freaking yellow eyes and red horns. This guy looks absolutely insane. Like, holy Lord. And then he roars. This man roars so loud that Tion, Tiona, Bet are having trouble standing up. It goes throughout the entirety of freaking Daedalus Street. It's so powerful that Haruhime and Lily just, like, faint. Welf and Makoto are just, like, nearly standing. It's like, what the hell, dude? And then within an instant, Atreus just kicks Bet right the hell out of the way. Kicks the hell out of Bet, like, without doing anything. And Finn's surprised by this, as well as Bet. And then Finn tells Tion to dodge just as Atreus is about to attack her. And thankfully she dodges, but in Atreus' second attack, freaking Tion is just absolutely, like, she's thrown back next to the wall where Bet is. And then Tiona tries to fight. Yeah, Tiona tries to fight him. But before she does, Aias is just, like, marveled and amazed and says, "A black minotaur." Now, I don't get this whole thing with, like, why everyone's going to be so surprised that it's a black minotaur. I don't know why that's so amazing. Maybe it's because, like, a lot of the minotaurs that we've seen in the show are red. And so it's, like, a rare breed. But it might also be a thing of, like, because I don't know how they rank monsters, but I'm assuming a black minotaur means that it's a very strong minotaur. It's either that or a black minotaur is a thing of the myth or of a myth. It may also be that a black minotaur is known to be really strong through the whole Argonaut story. Because I believe General Minos was a black minotaur, so I guess that's why they're just young. And we see Lid getting up from having just being completely beaten by Tion, and Lid wakes up to see Atreus and calls him Asterus. It was Asterus, but I'm gonna call him Atreus because why not? So it's Asterus Atreus, almost the same thing, but not really. So Atreus says Atreus, and he sees Tion and Atreus fighting. And Tiona is actually doing pretty well. Bet gets back up. He's starting to fight him. And Tion and Bet try to go in for an attack. Bet fails. Tion fails. And Tion just starts going straight in. Like going rogue, if you will. Going insane, having those crazy eyes that she had when Finn went out with Lily on that one date. She had those crazy eyes, and just starts punching and kicking the hell out of Atreus and saying that she'll make mincemeat out of him, but then is ultimately just thwarted away. Actually, no, they just keep on exchanging punches. The Atreus then smiles because Wilf noticed that, I guess. And what happens next is just also insane. Atreus then pulls out his second weapon out of his back, and it's another axe, and I don't know what it does, but we're gonna find out in a minute. I mean, you're gonna find out in a minute. It's like giant magic. It's not a giant magic weapon, but it is a magic sword that in the shape of an axe. Well, yeah, and it basically just brings forth a hellstorm of lightning. And my man's about to summon shit tons of lightning. And so to protect this from, hurting Bet and Bet, Tion, and Tiona, Riveria uses her protection spell. Saying, "Become the protecting light of the forest and save us," and whatnot. My name is Alf. And thankfully, cast it quick enough for nothing to happen. But all I can say is that the drop of the axe and like the orb of just pure electricity headed towards Tiona and Bet is absolutely insane. And they try to resist it, and then just like a giant, like almost like a nuclear blast just happens because of that. And during that nuclear blast, we see freaking Atreus just screaming his lungs out, or like just seeing him like laugh or whatever. And then that, folks, is where the break is. So after the break, we open up to a just completely ruined plaza. To illustrate, we see Hestia Familia just still shocked over this, and Hestia is like the first one to wake up. Makoto and Welf are barely awake. And then we see Tiona and Bet standing in the ruins, still facing Atreus as the dust clears. Now, I'll be right back because I can barely talk now. I've said so much that I actually just I'm gonna start losing my breath, and I just need something to drink and whatnot. So I'll see y'all in a hot second. So what happens next? Well, I'm going to tell you in this long-awaited recording that I've long-awaited for me, because I'm not going to explain it now. I'll explain it in Event Extravaganza 9.5. All right, I'll be right back. All right, I'll not be right back, but let's see what happens next. So, as I mentioned, the last scene that I described was Bet, Tiona, and Tiona facing against the super strong metal. No, not super strong metal. The freaking Atreus. And we now see that they're numb. They're numb. Atreus got them. They're numb, and they can't move. They're paralyzed. And it's like, uh-oh. And then from the fog, of course, we see the giant Atreus. Holy Lord, he looks so scary. And decided by the man's himself, Finn says, after seeing like this massive amount of power that this guy has, because he just brought upon like a lightning storm. Without that magic sword, frickin' Atreus would barely have. Atreus is already strong without that, but still, like with that sword, my homie's like Thor over here. Like, what the hell? Oh yeah, Finn says, we're done with trying to bring it in alive. And he's like, Ace, get him. And this is really cool, because we don't see, so before I start detailing what happens in the battle scene, this is really cool. This episode is really cool, because we get to see, Loki Familia fighting, which isn't a thing we really get to see in the main show at all. Like, if you look at Bill's perspective, although he trains with Loki Familia once in a while, like is trained by Ace and Tiona, and like meets with them in season 1, in the grand scheme of things, he actually doesn't meet him, or like we don't actually see Loki Familia in the main show all that much. Like them fighting, and we really mainly see them fight in Sword Artoria, because, that's their show. And so I think it's interesting to see Loki Familia here fighting. So let me describe this little battle Aes has, because it's a doozy. So Aes jumps down, freaking, like, so Aes jumps down, right? And it's really cool. I gotta, my respect for Aes, or my, like, admiration for Aes sort of just increases in this episode. And it's not because, like, oh, she's so beautiful and this and that. She's just so cool, man. Like, there's sometimes I forget that Aes is, like, the freaking one of the elites in Arario. And she's so cool because you'd think, like, oh yeah, she's jumping off from a high building, and when she lands, like, the whole ground is gonna shatter or something. But dude, it's so smooth and slick. Like when she hits the ground, like there's barely any sound, and it's so smooth. And then without hesitation, she unleashes her freaking Tempest power, freaking Tempest aerial, and then just absolutely cuts, like, in a millisecond, just cuts Atreus's right arm off, and it's like, what the like, I forget sometimes how powerful freaking Aes is. Anyway, so Atreus is surprised. He starts roaring, and then Aes and him start fighting, and they have a proper battle, man. The battle between Atreus and Aes is like an insane battle. It's probably just as good as the battle between Bel and the Minotaur and his adventure. But yeah, they're just... The crazy thing is that, again, with the whole Aes is cooler in this scene, is that, like, we get to see some of her movements of how, like, she moves in this battle, and why she's so fast. It's because, like, she's practically dancing. Like, they show a scene of her like, moving her, of how she moves, and it almost seems like she's just, like, shimmy shammy dancing kind of thing, like, with her feet, which is, like, really interesting, because it shows to me that a battle is more than just a battle, but it's a dance, which I've made that revelation before in other situations in my life, but, like, it's cool to see it here. And of course, rightfully so, freaking Makoto is surprised about this, saying, surprised at her calling her the War Princess, and I'm like, have we heard Aes being called the War Princess? I don't think we have. We've always heard her been called Sword Princess, or Sword Princess, and then I think there was another name besides War Princess and Sword Princess. I think it was like Baby Princess? I don't know. But yeah. And here's something cool. Here's what I love about this season. Like, what Hestia says next is what makes this season amazing. And it's really nothing amazing. Like, it's not like a heartwarming line or anything. But the camera pans on Hestia, and she looks super serious, Like, it's a tense moment. It's an intense, episode, But, Hestia's, like, really intense, got a really intense face. And she says, Aes Wallenstein. With an intense face. And why this is important is... Here's the thing, folks. Every time that Hestia ever hears anything about Aes or sees anything about Aes, it always has to do with jealousy or like maybe maybe being thankful, like that one time in the village where Aes was looking over her, like they're friends, The only times we've seen Aes, or not Aes, the only times we've seen Hestia sort of interact with Aes or react to a.k.a. is out of jealousy that, that Belle has a thing for her, out of being thankful because, a.k.a. was taking care of her, or just maybe just admiration of her, because it's like, I don't know, maybe admiration, because I forget how did Hestia feel when she saw a.k.a. at the banquet in season 2, episode 1? I forget, but my point is that every time a.k.a. has interacted or heard or talked about a.k.a., it's either always been out of jealousy, out of anger, or just being friendly. But what I think is really interesting, and again, what makes this season incredible, is that, Hestia, with a straight face, no signs of jealousy, no signs of happiness or anything, just says Wallenstein. And this line made me realize that this season, except for episode 1, and except for episode 1 and except for episode 4, we haven't had a single relaxing moment in the entire season. This entire season has been intense. It's been dark. It's been action-packed. It's been mystery-filled. It's been everything except relaxing. And most important of all, it hasn't been romantic-esque. People aren't really getting, except in the first episode where, it's like Ween's like, oh yeah, Lily, do you love Belle? That's the only bit of romance, the only hint of romance at all in the entirety of the season. And that's what I love so much about Memoria Freese. That's what I love so much about Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Because although it is labeled as a harem anime, and, Belle has a lot of people that love him, either romantically or just friendly, at its core, at the core of the show, it's not about who he ends up with. It's not about who loves Belle and how they get with Belle. At the end of the day, at its core, it's about the adventure of Belle, Cranel, and the Hestia Familia. Whether it be through a challenge of love, whether it be having to face different familias, whether it has to be trying to fight for what they believe is right. At the end of the day, at the core of the show, it's Hestia Familia. It's not romantic love. It's familial love. It shows that the show is more than just a harem anime, because it's more than that. And even though there's a lot of events in Memoria Freese that have a bunch of oh yeah, Shoreside Swimmer Story and Midsummer Lover's Tale, and that's all hinting towards romance here and there and there. At the end of the day, that's just an event. It's an event with the story that probably won't continue into the canon. And so, I don't know. I find it really cool because that single line made me realize why I love this series so much. it's not because of Hestia. It's not because of Lily. It's not because of Hermes. It's not because of Fels. It's not because of Aes. It's not because of everyone else. It's because of what happens. It's because of the action. It's because of the lore. It's because of the world. It's because of what's happening. It's because of wanting to see what happens to these characters. Happen to these characters' lives. Not romantically, but just it's such a good show, man. It's just anyway. That one line just made me think a million things. Anyway, continuing. After that, we see good old Freya and Otaro. And Freya's like, do you remember that Minotaur from somewhere? And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So, folks, remember when I made that theory that I thought that huge Minotaur that was following Arls and the Hellhound Xenos? And remember how I said, maybe isn't that the Minotaur that Belle fought? That'd be so crazy. But then I'm like, no, it can't be. And the same thing is what Otaro says here. And he says no. But no, it couldn't be. But my theory is that it could be. Because even though it's highly improbable, folks, how much do you want to bet that when Belle killed the Minotaur in his adventure, that the Minotaur was resurrected? Not resurrected. The Minotaur was reborn at a lower floor in the dungeon, but stronger. Because that's a thing that can happen, according to Uranus in one of the episodes. And so it's very possible that the Minotaur that they're fighting right now is the same Minotaur that Belle fought all the way back in Season 1. So, it's pretty cool. Anyway, we continue the battle between Atreus and Aes. And Aes is just Aes is barely getting anything on this guy. And, Atreus is just trying to block her. And at the last second, Atreus actually gets a hit on Aes. And again, this episode is very dark, very gory. And for the first time, and I feel like ever, Aes is bleeding. She's got hit. I mean, it's not like a freaking axe through her head, but I think she got hit in her shoulder, which is what the okay, that's wow. We've seen them get bruises, but I'm not sure if we've actually seen them all bloodied up. Anyway, of course, rightfully so. Finn and Reverie are surprised. Dude, how the hell is this Black Minotaur keeping up with Aes? This is insane. Freaking. Oh shit, dude. Oh yeah. So, what happens next? And I'm gonna keep on saying what happens next because I'm watching the. I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually watching the episode as I'm reviewing this. So what happens next? Aes goes in to attack one last time. The freaking Atreus pushes her back, and then Aes lands on her feet like she's a cat, and she can't move. She can't move. She is shaky and all that. And so to prevent her from continuing to fight for a minute and to calm the hell down, my man's Gareth comes on the battlefield. And I'm like, I was genuinely scared because I thought Gareth was going to die. Because it's this guy, and this Black Minotaur, Atreus, holy lord, it's a hell of a foe. So I was genuinely worried. I was genuinely thinking that someone was going to end up dying with all this, from all this. Thankfully not. So basically, Gareth tells Aes to calm down, to just stand down. Just as, so tells Aes to calm down. And then after that, Finn jumps down and I'm like, my man's about to battle And then just like that, Finn and Gareth engage. But before they engage, so they're about to engage, and before they engage, a bunch of what do you call them? Explodey things. Not explodey things. A bunch of a bunch of smoke bombs, that's it. A bunch of smoke bombs fall from the sky. And they're all falling, they're falling from the sky. It's like, what the hell's going on? What the hell's going on? Like, they can barely see anything, Loki Familia is trapped in the smoke. And we learned that it's Laloon, and I'm like, oh, dude, Laloon is so cool. So apparently that's how she was going to take care of all the Xenos. So the smoke, extends for miles and miles and miles, and this allows Gross and Lyd, even though we don't see them, this allows for all the Xenos in the area to escape. And Loki Familia, for the first time, I feel like, realizes that they misjudged it, and accepts defeat. And I'm like, dude, that's wild. That's wild. Okay, so now, folks, is where the episode gets a bit more darker, because, well, the sky gets darker. So the sky gets darker, and we're seeing more overhead shots of Daedalus Street, and it's Daedalus Street looks so cool. And so the sky is darker, and there's little puffs of explosions everywhere. And it's all coming from VIII. What I forget to mention, though, is that from the overhead shot that we see of Daedalus, there's these two guys running across buildings. And like I said, VIII's rampaging through the streets still. Belle is chasing after her still, saying, VIII, stop. And Belle's like, what the hell can I do? And this whole thing is crazy, because it's like, well, it's crazy. I mean, do I have to say anything else? So VIII's going, Belle's chasing after her, and he's like, I want to help her, and I'm like, yeah, please help her. And then we go back to the two guys that were running across roofs, and we see them jump down another roof, and they're chasing after VIII. And then in front of VIII, there's three other dudes. I'm gonna call them adventurers, because they are. And then these three adventurers in front of them all have crossbows, and I'm like, uh-oh, Belle, you better protect VIII. So they're about to shoot at her. Belle says don't, and then they shoot. And it's like, they didn't kill VIII, but they're weakening her. And it's like, shit, dude. And so what Belle does in retaliation is, it's a foolish move, but it's a smart move at the same time. And he says, Firebolt, and freaking casts his good old magics, and continues to chase after VIII. And then adventurers across different buildings are like, what do you think you're doing? And then more adventurers on their way. And then Belle uses Firebolt again, continues to follow VIII. VIII goes through a gate, he goes through a gate, not realizing that it's a trap. So where this gate leads them is, and for a second, Belle's running towards a white door frame, so I'm over here thinking oh, is this the same white door frame where the little gate was, and in the One Monsterphilia episode where Belle and Hestia are running through the streets of Daedalus Street, or through Daedalus Street, and they find this gate, but Belle is the only one that makes it past the gate, because he wants Hestia to stay safe. So that's what I thought he was running to, but it's something completely different. So VIII and Belle come to a rooftop coliseum of sorts. And on this rooftop coliseum, there's dozens of magic users, dozens of archers, and Belle only realizes this at the last second when all of the mages raise their magic staffs. And what feels like a second, electrocute VIII at a massive amount. And Belle is just left there seeing VIII in complete pain as her wings start melting away. And I'm like, what the fuck? And Belle's trying to chase after VIII. And Belle only makes it after the damage has been done. And we now see VIII's wings just completely evaporating. And VIII herself continuing to cry as she reaches out for Belle, and Belle reaches out for her. And then, unfortunately, she's stabbed in the heart by the guy who got an axe in his head, who says, "I killed it! I killed it! I killed it!" And VIII stands still with a spear straight through her heart. And Belle is so sad, and, well, not sad. Bella's like, VIII, and I'm like, I'm over here just, like, absolutely amazed at what's happening right now. And then right when he says VIII, the ground starts to break beneath them. And both him and VIII start falling. And it's this sort of it's this beautiful scene where like a bunch of rocks are falling, and, you know, all the debris is falling, and then Belle, like, sort of just floats over to VIII and tries to hold on to her to protect her. And then they fall to the ground. And the guy that freaking got an axe in his head and basically just killed VIII says, "I killed the monster, I killed it, me." And then, not even a second after, is immediately murdered by Gross. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, wow. And so before we continue, realize that the sky is really dark. That this whole situation, in fact, is really dark. VIII has just been impaled by a very sharp and thick spear. And has also been completely and utterly rendered useless, or not useless, but like just rendered immovable or immobile because of these mages who have just shocked her with a bajillion jolts of lightning. And it's terrifying. And, you know, I'm watching this episode and I'm like, holy shit, this is so dark. This is so unbelievably dark. And I'm over here and I'm just freaked out, man. I'm just in awe at how dark the episode is. And I mean, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to think Like, Ween is basically just dead, is what I'm thinking. And, there's a bit of hope, right? Right? Before we get to that, let's just talk about how cool Gross is. Oh my god. Gross just freaking came in from the clouds and then just pounced on the guy that killed Ween. Or the guy that, shot the spear through Ween. And dude, Gross just at full force just crushed the guy with his feet. Dude, what a legend. Oh my, if you didn't love Gross more, if you haven't already taken a liking to Gross, you should now. Dude, what a scene right there. Freaking Gross literally, oh my god. Anyway, before we continue, because what's going to happen next is going to be the most. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pause this section. This episode, by the way, even though it's part 3, it's going to definitely 100% go out in, the evening of the it's going to definitely go out in the evening of episode 38, 938, which sucks, but whatever. The schedule for Memoria Freese is already effed up. It doesn't matter. At least if I got an episode out yesterday, then that's all that matters. But yeah, this is a little iffy, because yeah. Anyway, I'll be back with recording the final. I'll be back with reviewing the final 5 minutes of the episode. More like 10. But yeah, I can't believe that it took me 5 minutes to review. It took me 30 minutes to review 5 minutes. That's how insane this episode is, man. If this review is not 4 hours or 3 hours, I'm honestly just gonna cry, because it needs to be. It needs to be. Anyway, like I said, I'll be right back. I'm gonna have some food, and yeah, you'll find out what happens next in a minute. So what happens next? Well, let me tell you what happens next. So, quick recap, because why not? Gross has just killed the man that has shot a spear, or thrown a spear, through Ween. Ween and Belle are together at the bottom of a pit. And yeah. So they're at the bottom of a pit. Gross has just killed the man that killed, just threw a spear through Ween. And now a bunch of flying Xenos are trying to sort of say, don't come near here, to the mages that also took part in killing or harming Ween. So we go down to the hole where Ween and Belle are. And we see Ween just lifeless. Let me lower the music for this. We see Ween just lifeless. We still see the spear straight through her body. And Belle, Belle then tries... Oh, dude. So Belle then takes out... oh, God, this is going to be a hard scene. Belle takes out the spear that was in Ween, that impaled Ween, threw it away, and is trying to wake up Ween, and has the bright idea to put her stone back into her head. And, well, this is what happens. The stone glows. The magic stone glows. And in just probably one of the saddest scenes of the season, Ween's body starts to disappear. And it's starting to reveal, the magic crystal within her. And that magic crystal begins to break. Her wings are disappearing. She's turning to dust slowly as Belle tries to embrace her. Ween wakes up. He's like, Belle? And then Belle looks at her. He's crying. And I'm crying. Ween says, I'm sorry. And Belle says it's okay as he continues to cry. He says everything's all right as he continues to cry. He says, I'm all right. So please, Ween. And as Ween continues to slowly wither away, she says this, I have this dream. No one comes to save me. It's a scary dream. But you know? And the sad part about this, right? So she says, but do you know? And then she brings her hand, she places her hand on Belle's face, but it disappears. Like, as soon as she puts it on Belle's face, she continues to say, this time, someone did come to save me. And she begins to cry as well. And Belle cries just as much. And she says, I'm so happy. As memories of when they first met, and memories in the Hearthstone Manor, and memories just that they had in the early parts of their friendship resurface. All those funny, insignificant, yet beautiful moments become significant. They run through her head. They run through Belle's head as she says her final words. Belle, I love you. And folks, just watching this scene again is making me tear up. She says, Belle, I love you. And then her magic stone cracks. And she fully disappears. She's gone. And her dust leaves Belle's hands as he continues to cry. He cries so much that this man's got some tears on his freaking breastplate over here. And the only thing left is her magic stone. And I'm just left in awe. And I'm like, is this the end? Is this the end of the season? Is this really the end of Ween? Is this the death of Ween? Is this the ending we get? No one wins. Neither Dece Perdece, Neither... nobody wins. Neither Dees per Dees or Belle. No one wins. And I'm thinking, is this how it ends? Belle loses Ween. Dees is dead. And Atreus rampages on through Daedalus Street. Is that how this ends? And I genuinely think I'm left in shock. I kid you not. I had my hands, like my hands are cold right now actually. My hands were really cold when I saw this the first time. And I had my hands covering my face because this was such an incredibly sad moment and an incredibly sad thing. I didn't know what to think. I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen? Is this how it ends? Is this the end of this whole arc? Is this really how everything ends? And I'm just left there, speechless, completely speechless, and crying as Belle goes to hold Ween's magic stone, while he cries in his shoulders. And shit, I'm fucking getting emotional about this. And randomly, almost like if they're fairies of sorts, or wisps, or whatever the souls or the spirits, almost like spirits, start appearing around Belle. We see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We see multiple appear as Fels casts a spell, which goes like, "O untrodden land, O forbidden wall, today on this day, I turn my back on the rule of the heavens. Rod of Pius, bowl of Salus." And when he says this, the gem, Ween's magic stone, in Belle's hand, starts to grow, starts to shine. O voice, you who know powers of healing can reach. And then Fels raises his hand, a magic circle appears below Belle, and Fels continues to say, "I beg of you to wait." As a gigantic blue beam shoots up to the sky, in the middle having Belle and Ween's magic stone. This beam is so large, it pierces the heavens. The Xenos sees this, and people think it's a god returning, as this epic song plays in the background, and everyone's staring at this massive beam shooting into the sky. And we get Uranus saying, "Have you used that then, Fels?" And Freya says, "Magic which transcends human knowledge." Loki's like, oh, I forgot Loki was here. Loki says, "Wonder what's going to happen now?" And Hermes says, "A miracle, no doubt." Fels continues to say as Belle looks at Ween's magic stone crystal in his hands, glowing. He continues to say, "Endless tears, the sound of singing scatters and fades. The price has already been paid. O path of light, receive the prescribed past as a sacrifice. I wish for you to illuminate a foolish plea. Oh, I cannot look back. Dia ora ferse. And with this amazing fucking song in the background, this beam turns into a string, into like a ribbon, a majestic ribbon that, like I said previously, pierces the sky, but this time removes the darkness of the world almost. And flows all of its energy into the magic stone, Xenos appearing on different levels, watching Belle and Ween's magic crystal. A gigantic blue ball surrounds them, glowing until it shrinks, and what we're left with seeing is Belle holding a resurrected Ween. And folks, that fucking scene was the most... The song that was used in that scene was the most fucking beautiful song I have ever heard in this show. So, what happens next? Ween is saved. She's breathing. She opens her eyes. And Belle, just like me, is just crying of so much happiness. And Fells says, "This is the first time I have succeeded. 800 years, honestly. I curse this magic for its uselessness, but there was a purpose to it after all." Belle cries, holding Ween, as the outro slowly fades into view. And just, wow. This episode was just so amazing. That last part really just fucking got me. I teared up so much, man. And just such a good episode. I love Fells so much right now. The man's fucking resurrected a Xenos. A living being. Wow. It was amazing, man. But you'd be a fool to think that that's the end of the episode. After this, after the outro, we're brought to underneath a sewer, where we see all of the Xenos, Belle, Fells, and they're all surrounding Ween. They're all like, "Ween, Ween, Ween!" And Ray is like, "Belle, thank you so much." And Belle just looks down, just trying to think. And Fells says, now I know what I said about the last scene, but this scene really fucking got me, guys. Because, fuck, I'm gonna get fucking emotional. This scene really fucking got me, folks, because, there's something really poetic about it that I sort of had a revelation. So let me tell you what happens in the scene. Fel says, Bel Cranel, thanks to you, the Xenos were saved. It is no lie, you saved Ween too. I am grateful to you as well. Bel says, I am, and then Fel says, I am sure you must have regrets. Bel says, he called me a hypocrite. Dees called me a hypocrite. And what Fel says is, this is what I think. It is those who are spoken ill of as hypocrites that have the right to become heroes. In the past, there may have been many who bore strange ties to the Xenos and showed them kindness. However, someone like you who shows no regard for himself and simply rushes to their aid, not a single one was like that. I, who have lost both skin and muscle, say this to you. I, to whom only bones and regrets remain, I say this to you. Be a fool. Be a fool, Bel Cranel. What you possess is extraordinarily foolish, but I am certain it is something precious and irreplaceable. That fucking line brought me to goddamn tears. That fucking line brought me to goddamn tears. And for like so many other reasons that I'm not gonna explain why it brought me to so many tears. Obviously because of Bel and all that, but that fucking line brought me to so many tears. Fuck, man. What a beautiful. So, that's unfortunately not how the episode ends, even though it's a perfect ending. What happens next is that we see that it's now like evening, and we see Bel looking at the destruction, looking at the destruction caused by Atreus. And we also see that Aina's there, just like really ticked off, writing on her little freaking freaking clipboard. And he says, Aina. And then Aina says, through a selfish decision, you expose the city and its people to danger. And other adventurers suffered injury. Is that true? And Bel says, yes. And Aina over here just slapped him. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you for giving him a good old slapping. But it's another little emotional moment from Aina. Because Aina just starts to cry and says, I don't believe it. And then Bel realizes how much, man. Aina's like, I could never believe that, and then just starts to hug him, and it's such a nice scene. It's such a wholesome scene. And then with that, the episode ends with the reveal of the title of episode 9, the supposed finale, I believe, of season 3, which is called Stigma Downfall. And just like that, folks, we have finished the most emotional, the most beautiful, and the most incredible episode of Season 3 of Memoria Freese, of Zeron try to pick up girls in a dungeon. Now let's go ahead and do the side story. Holy shit, like, I'm actually crying now. Can I just stop crying, please? So yeah, this review is probably a fucking 3 hours long, and rightfully so, because holy shit. I mean, oh my god. Dudes, I can't believe that I have to record fucking a VIII Extravaganza 9.5 after this. Jesus Christ. No, I'll explain what took... I'll explain the insanity that ensued to make this episode at the beginning of VIII Extravaganza 9.5. So yeah, let's do side story 8, folks. So what's gonna happen now? Ooh. Is that right? Thank the Lord. Yep. Yep. Shoot. Shoot, man. It's saving the guild from being blamed. It really is. Yep. Complete fools. Ooh, Isolus. To a scapegoat? Huh? Oh, okay. Perfect. Oh, Iceless. Oh, it's a Kelos. Gotcha. How did they? Oh, so the family doesn't know. It's only Hermes that knows. Oh, wow, okay. Yep. Well, you never know. I don't know about that, Hermes. I mean, the next episode is called Stigma Downfall, so I don't know about that. Yeah. Ooh. Oh, is that right? Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, they did make it to the surface, didn't they? Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, they did. I completely went, like, that didn't cross my mind. So cool. Just sucks that their first time had to frickin' be fighting. Faust is gonna be caught? Oh, no, that's gonna be bad. Uranos dealing with Loki Familia, that's interesting. That would be very interesting. Yeah. Yep. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, okay. I mean, no one can, really. I mean, let's be honest. He really did. Damn. Yep. Yep. Is it official? Did they really just announce it here? Wow. So it's official, huh? Bella is related to little Zeus. Fucking hell, dude. Oh, dude, this is gonna be so. Oh, 10 episodes. Pog. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, thank the fucking Lord. I thought that. Thank the Lord that there's gonna be another 5 fucking episodes. What is it? 9, 10, 11, 12. Another 4 fucking. Oh, thank the Lord. I still got 4 weeks. We're gonna hit the mark for the next 4 weeks, folks. Holy shit. What a great episode. What a great review. I will see you guys for just the most insane event extravaganza where we're going to complete the entirety of Turbulent Shore Rondo in one part and then complete the entirety of a duo of Sun and Moon in the second part. Now, folks, I just want to say this. The episodes of Memoria Freese right now are just all mixed and matched and fucking... Not mixed and matched, but they're all fucking, like... They're all going to be late and whatnot. Like, I'm going to start... I'm probably going to end up recording these 2 episodes, like, at midnight. It's going to be fucking crazy, folks. Yeah, the schedule for Memoria Freese this week, or, it has been, is fucking insane. Because, a lot of editing has to be done. But hopefully, we can get all of that fixed starting Thursday. I'm not going to tell you what day it is right now at this point in the episode. You'll have to learn that for yourself. And that was a weird voice, folks. I'd love to thank y'all for right now. Well, yeah, I'd love to thank y'all, and I'm gonna thank y'all. There's been a super long review, and so get ready to now that you've heard me talk for like 15 hours, get ready for me to talk for another 15,000, because like I said, we are going to be completing Turbulent Shore Rondo and a duo of Sun and Moon. We about to see a shit ton of Loki Familia. We're about to see a shite ton of Tion and Tion's past. I think we're also gonna see, we're gonna see Haruhime as well. So, it's gonna be very interesting. I'm very excited about all of this. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be different. But, until then, this has been me, and I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna have a snack. And, yeah, this is a great episode. Best episode. Honestly, fucking love it. Belle Cranel the Fool couldn't have been better. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, and then I gotta, yeah. Alright, adios so much for watching, and sayo fucking nara. Peace!